Hello, Brubs. We're back with Salem's Children by Mary Leader, a 1979 horror book, which is pretty decent. Not great, but it's decent. Chapter 10. You have company, the doctor said, rising. I'll go. But Lucian barred his way. Ah, the Herr Doctor Brun, he said with a tinge of mockery. Don't let us disturb you. I was just dropping Lucy off. I'll be on my way. Stay a while, Lucian, I invited, hoping he wouldn't, but he promptly sank down in a lawn chair and tilted it back comfortably. Please don't leave, Dr. Brun, I begged. I'll bring more lemonade for everyone. Rowan, dear, would you go see if Carl is awake? And if she is, Carrie is awake, pardon. And if she is, bring her down. Rowan had returned with the baby by the time I came outside with lemonade and cookies. She seated herself cross legged at Lucy's feet. Lucy sat prim and nervous on the edge of her chair, her short skirt tucked in neatly under her bare thighs, thin hands clasped about her knees. Dark blue veins showed through the transparent white skin of her face, and the great round spectacles framed her myopic eyes, giving her an owlish look. Certainly she didn't resemble her father. Perhaps she took after her mother. When had she died? What a lonely life the child must have had, brought up mostly in the care of housekeepers. Mother and her lemonade, Rowan was protesting. Wouldn't you rather have soda, Lucy? No, no, this will be fine, the girl murmured uncertainly, as if she were afraid of offending me. I went back to the house to get glasses. When I returned, Rowan was speaking to Lucian. Mother thinks Iris is a witch. I would I wish you'd tell her that's not so. What do you got, bruv? I never said that, I protested, passing the tray to Lucian. I did wonder how you countenance her dabbling in the occult. He cleared his throat. It's hard to explain, I know. I myself had double I myself had doubts about her at first, but she has convinced me she uses her talents for God's purpose. She doesn't do it for money, and it's what she knows best. Sometimes one must fight fire with fire. Though, through her qualified use of astrology and palmistry, she manages to get close to her young friends and steer them into right thinking. She's really quite remarkable. What's up, bruvs? Then it doesn't bother you for Lucy to hang around her shop. On the contrary, I'm grateful that Iris is kind enough to provide Peacehaven with an unofficial youth center. I was afraid of Iris at first. Sometimes she talks in a funny language, but Daddy said the disciples did that too, so I wasn't afraid anymore, Lucy blurted out. A bright pink suffused hair, a bright pink suffused her fair skin, and her pale eyes blinked behind the thick lenses, making her look more owl-like than ever. Her father was obviously annoyed. She means Iris talks in tongues, he explained. Yes, Rowan mentioned something about that to me, I said. Do you pray in tongues? Dr. Brun asked suddenly. No, Lucian admitted. The good Lord has never given me the gift. Dr. Brun leaned forward. What does talking in tongues mean to you, Lucian? A wary look came into the minister's eyes. Since I've never done it, I'll have to describe it the way Iris does. She says she suddenly finds herself praying or praising in words whose meaning she doesn't know. She just knows it's God's language, and he prefers to hear that rather than any other. If she doesn't know what she's praying about, How does she know she's praying for something good, or for that matter, that she's even praying to God? I asked. By the exultation she feels, Lucian answered. It's certainly a Christian phenomenon. Paul lists the gift of tongues in that same chapter in Corinthians you once cited to me, Martin. Dr. Brune absent mindedly tore off a tendril of trumpet vine and began toying with it. It is a problem to which I've given much thought, he said. I know there are many sincerely religious people who think they have the gift of tongues, and perhaps they do. Yet, according to the book of Acts, Pentecost was the coming together of people of many nations, cultures, and languages to be of one spirit, one religious mind, and through this miracle, all languages became one. It seemed to each man that everyone else spoke in his own language. They knew what they were talking about. The Bible says so explicitly. And how hear we every man in our own tongue, wherein we were born? It is my prayer that someday we will attain Pentecost again, the power of universal understanding. But when we do, I think we, as well as God, will know what we are praying about. Unintelligible gibberish could be the utterings of demons, you know. The lines of the corners of Lucian's mouth were drawn down. Are you trying to say Mrs. Faulkner's gift isn't genuine, that it comes from Satan? Dr. Brune set his drink aside and stood up, silhouetted against the western sky, so that tongues of flame seemed to emanate from the tousled white hair. I do not speak of individual cases, he said, nor do I make accusations. I merely gave you my interpretation. Now I must go. An old man gets long-winded and tiresome at times. After he'd left, Rowan took Lucy up to her room to listen to records. Soon the decibels, that's a decibels. Soon the decibels were flying out the window, and I suggested to Lucian that we take a walk and give our ears a break. As we came around the house to the west side, I saw Dana stooping over something below one of the windows. When she straightened, I saw she was holding a tiny blue bird in the hollow of her hand. Did it hit the window? I never could shake a sense of personal guilt when my house brought death to one of these creatures. Dana nodded, manipulating its minuscule breast. Lightly she breathed into the parted beak. After a long moment, the eyes opened halfway. She continued to stroke it, murmuring words in what I supposed was Winnebago. The eyes became two round black beads in a violet hushed or hued head. The azure wings fluttered. Dana looked up with a smile. The heart is beating again. Now I will warm my little brother with my hands so he does not die of shock. See, he struggles. That is good. The wings aren't broken because he doesn't drag them. She set the indigo bunting on a sunny ledge, where he teetered back and forth groggily on the warm stone. In the sunlight, his feathers shaded from sapphire to peacock blue, with elegant black tips on his wings, a living jewel. Isn't he beautiful? I exclaimed, gently touching his throat. His tiny black and white beak investigated my finger, and for one moment I imagined he recognized me as a friend, but he spread his wings, tested them a second, then flipped himself into the air. Dana laughed at my disappointment. Never expect gratitude from a wild bird, she said. Think how you'd feel if you woke up to find a giant stroking your throat. We run a wildlife rescue squad here, I explained to Lucian, who was scowling at Dana's retreating figure. We had reached a mound of shelf rock that formed a natural bench at the edge of the bluff. Just a few feet away, the weathered column of tomahawk rock reared from the base of the cliff, Below, beneath a canopy of elms and maples, the townspeople were going about their business. Farther out, the river lay like a gilded serpent in the late afternoon sun. Closing my eyes, I let myself go limp against the stone, yet my nerves remained alert. Sensually aware of the man beside me, I was conscious of his hand lying next to mine, not quite touching. Why did I have such ambivalent feelings about both him and Greg? Yet it was not quite the same. I was undeniably drawn to Greg, as I had once thought I never would be to any man but Owen. What do you got, bruv? But I couldn't banish the sensation of some force or forces outside us both keeping us apart. With Lucian, it was the opposite. Lucian the man repelled me, and Lucian the minister irritated me. It was only that other personality of which I caught occasional glimpses that held an almost sinister attraction. Which one was sitting beside me now? His little finger crossed mine, such a slight, innocent gesture, and yet somehow I felt violated, partly because of the response deep inside my own body. I'm glad I'm glad you brought Lucy today, I said, withdrawing my hand. I've been lonely. It's been lonely for her without a mother, he said. There's just the two of us. Mrs. Soames, our housekeeper, isn't very congenial. She's a stubborn old soul. For some odd reason, she has a hang up about Iris. Lucy invited her to dinner, and Mrs. Soames refused to cook it. Well, chalk one up for Mrs. Soames, I thought. She reminds me of Dana, he went on. She eavesdrops. Dana never does that? I was indignant. Why was she hanging around just now? You can't tell me it was that bird. If anyone has a right here, she has. She probably came over to look in on Carrie and Mac Duff. She's awfully good about that. You like her, don't you? Yes, very much. Well, if I were you, I'd go slow with her. There's a lot we don't know. I turned on him angrily. There's a lot you don't know about me, Lucian, so you'd better go slow with me, too. I hope you're not one of those foolish people who thinks she's a witch. Did I say that? No, but you've heard others say it and you believed them, didn't you? Let's just say I don't trust her. She's not a Christian. She believes in Christ. She said so. I doubt it. Although I hope for her sake and yours that it's so. He smiled. Let's not quarrel, Mitty, even though you're very beautiful when your eyes flash like that. He caught me off guard. I wanted no flattery from him and quickly changed the subject. Has anyone ever told you the legend of Tomahawk Rock? I gave him no chance to answer. The Indians say it was put there by Earthmaker to be a protection from tornadoes and other natural disasters. It hasn't managed to keep the river away, he observed. Maybe its protection begins up here. Do you realize that rock's only a few feet from us, but the drop in between makes it miles away? Sometimes I'm tempted to build a bridge out to it. Why don't you? That would be cheating. Why? Because it's good to have a solid example of the unattainable. God should have some places where he alone can stand. Unwittingly, I had flung down the gauntlet. A curious light came into his eyes, and I thought how very unlike a clergyman he looked at that moment. You know, he said slowly, I think I could just make it. Lucy, and you're not serious. He crouched low. Don't. You'll fall. But he was already running, and now he sprang over the void between the face of the bluff and the flat top of the rock. The jump was a good one, if he could check his momentum, if he didn't slip. Visions of his body toppling over the other side and hurtling down onto the sharp rocks below flashed before me. But he landed lightly and surely, swayed dizzily a moment, then regained his balance. He turned around slowly and faced me triumphantly. Now it's mine, as well as God's, he cried. I'm standing on the pinnacle of the temple just as Christ did. Yes, and the devil put him there, I shouted back. Now what could he do? The rock had no running room for a return leap. He seemed oblivious to danger, standing with arms uplifted as the setting sun enveloped him in flaming robes. His eyes sought me out, but this wasn't Lucian. Simon Mogus, preparing to fly, came to my mind, but that was an apocryphal tale, remote and unreal. While the scene before me, had roused the sensation of having been personally involved in some ancient drama, of having known this man eons ago. I'm in God's place, he shouted. Now do you know me? I am God. Why do you not fall down and worship me? I was too shocked to answer. A sudden a sudden rage shook him, and a spate of unintelligible words spewed from his mouth. Though I couldn't understand their meaning, there was no mistaking the venom in them. Then a cloud drifted over the lowering sun, divesting him of his robes, turning him back into Lucian again, a slight man in red sport shirt and pants. His mouth had gone slack, his face ashen, and sweat was beginning to break out on his brow, as for the first time he seemed to realize where he was. He hunched down to make the return jump, lost his nerve, and lowered himself cautiously to all fours. Oh man. To all fours on the tiny island in the sky. I can't do it, he gasped, gripping the stone. Don't try. I'll go for help. I started for the shed to get the extension ladder, but Dana was already coming with it. And Dr. Brune was sprinting toward us with a coil of rope. He tossed one end to Lucian and called to him to tie it around his waist. The other end Dr. Brune fastened to an oak tree nearby. Then the three of us hoisted the ladder across the void and held it fast. Lucian crawled out on it, but the ladder sagged with his weight, and he scrambled back. Don't worry, it will hold, Dr. Brune assured him. If not, the rope will keep you from falling. Again he tried, and again he pulled back. You must trust us, Dr. Brune persisted. Lucian's eyes darted from face to face. I don't suppose that in all of Peacehaven he could have found 3 people he trusted less. He shook his head and clung to his pinnacle. Dr. Brune lost patience. Very well, if you won't let us help you, get off the way you came. He walked to the tree and began to work with the knot in the rope. No, Lucian shouted. I'll do it. Don't leave me. Slowly, he inched his way across while the ladder creaked and swayed, and we kept the rope taut. Don't know what could have made me do that, the minister muttered shamefacedly. Shamefacedly, is that a word? Muttered shamefacedly when he was safely back on the bluff. I told you, the devil, I teased, then felt sorry. It was really indecent to unman him any further. In his chagrin, Lucian was more likable, if not lovable, than he'd ever been. At least you may have established a record, I consoled him. You're probably the first person ever to stand on Tomahawk Rock. You won't say anything about this, will you? He asked anxiously. Why should we? Dana flung back at him as she and Dr. Brune started away. Winnebago boys do it all the time at the Dells. What language were you using? I asked after they'd gone. I couldn't understand a word. Language, he puzzled, then his eyes lighted. Do you suppose I was talking in tongues? That must be it. The Holy Spirit come down upon me. It really didn't sound like the Holy Spirit talking. You were too angry. Right at first, though, you spoke in English, said you were God, and wondered why I didn't worship you. He caught my wrist. I said I was God? Oh, my dear Mitty, I must have given you a terrible shock for you to imagine any such thing. That would be blasphemy. He stroked my hand. I did give you a turn, didn't I? Turn of bullshit. All right. Got 14 more pages to go. Let me grab some beer here. It's the last of last year's pumpkin beer. Chapter 11. As if I needed another beer. Ladybug, ladybug, at last you are home, but where are your children? While with witches you roam. So now I had a bad post on the line, I thought. More amused than frightened, the phone had been ringing as I came in the house after a long day of driving in the country with Dana. We had gone out to Aunt Bo's old farm so that Dana could deliver her herbs to Dylan, the new owner for his witchcraft shop in Madison. Then we'd stop by the Hobbs farm to drop off some groceries for old Ruby Hobbs, who couldn't drive and who'd lived alone since her brother died 2 years before. Half deaf, unkempt, and suspicious of strangers, Ruby was the embodiment of the stereotype witch. In Salem, she would have swung without the hysteria. Her farmhouse was typical too. No plumbing, no electricity, rooms filled with junk and festooned with cobwebs. Her one luxury was a telephone. I asked if I might call Rowan to tell her to put the meatloaf in the oven. If you pay me 20 cents, she answered tartly. Then a slow red crept in under the grime on her cheeks as she caught the reproach in Dana's eye. Sorry, guess I shouldn't have said that. You bringing me my things like you did. It's the sheriff that makes me mad. Now he's renting my barn. He thinks he can use my phone all he pleases, and I have limited service. After leaving Ruby, Dana and I dropped in at the Red Farm. What a contrast to see Esther and the new baby and then came home. Now this sinister phone call, the first in weeks. Who could know about our visit to Dylan's witch farm? I'd said nothing about it to either Rowan or Esther. My fingers tensed on the instrument. Someone at the other end of the line was listening. So was I. A smell of fear in my nostrils. By now, Carrie and Macduff should have come tumbling to greet me, and I didn't hear Rowan's cassette playing upstairs. As I started to hang up the phone, the listener spoke again. Ladybug, ladybug, have you no care? Look the house over. They're not anywhere. So creepy. Macduff was howling in the play yard outside, but the interior of the house was a black hole in space. Rowan, Carriad, don't play games. Where are you? My search finally led me to the tower, where I picked up the phone and started to dial Jim Willard, then checked myself. I wouldn't have it be a police matter. I mustn't think about Susie Toothaker. I dialed Darcy's number. Marion answered. No, they hadn't seen the girls. Allison next. No, neither had she, nor had any of Rowan's friends. I tried Greg, but there was no answer either at his apartment or at the newspaper. I felt an unreasoning anger at his not being available when I needed him most. Lucian was home, but could give me no information. Nor could Elspeth. Did I detect gloating in her voice? Mariel Toothaker sounded genuinely worried and begged me to call the moment I found them. My anxiety must be showing, I thought. Finally, reluctantly, I called the patch. Edna Bradbury, Iris's assistant, answered. No, I haven't seen them. Why don't you call Iris at home? It's her day off. I flipped to the F's in the Peacehaven section of the county telephone book. Faulkner, Iris. The letters blurred, and I leaned dizzily against Aunt Bo's desk as the tower spun, catapulting me into another room and another time when I stood before. Dour faced men in leather doublets gathered around the table at the end of a long hall. One, more formally clad in black, hammered on the rough hewn oak table with a pine knot gavel, gloating balefully at a woman in a floor length gown of Linsey Woolsey, who stood a few paces from me. I seemed to know her, but couldn't remember where. This was not me, nor my place, and I struggled to free myself of it, to get back to where I belonged, as there was something I must do. But time had turned counterclockwise, and I with it. There was no escape. Good wife, the magistrate leveled his gavel at her. This woman, turning the gavel in my direction, has made serious allegations against you. How do you plead, good wife? I nearly laughed out loud. Was it whore he'd called her? So does that say struth? Struth that were fitting. Does that mean it's truth? Struth that were fitting, for I remembered her now. She still had a stylish cut to her figure, and the coarse cloth of her bodice was stretched across still firm breasts. Her sandy hair was gathered into a lace cap, far too fine to be worn by one of her means. How do you plead, goody? Does that say whore? Goody whore? The Jesus Christ. How do you plead, goody whore? The magistrate asked again. Not guilty, your honor, with the demure bow of her head. Will you repeat the charge, goody Esty? He ordered. No one spoke. Goody Esty, I asked ye, will you repeat the charge? The man was looking at me. Was Esty my name? I, your honor, the person I seemed to be, stammered. I charge this woman with corrupting children and servants by intimidation. I know some have accused her of being a witch, and that she be, a woman called out from among the spectators. Everyone knows she said she 'ud live poorly as long as her husband, William, were alive. But after he died she should live better. And didn't he die the very day she said he would? And hasn't she lived better ever since? The gavel pounded. Silence, woman! You were not asked to testify. But Sarah Bibber, oh, the prattling tongue, was not to be quieted. Have ye forgotten that ye held an autopsy when poor William died? The magistrate made the mistake of replying, and have ye forgotten that naught came of that? Humph, she snorted. Who ever heard of the devil's minions leaving traces of their sorcery? Lesson they wanted to. The gavel made dents in the table. Constable, remove that woman. Goody Esty, will you continue? I know not of her being a witch, I testified, albeit I think it has suited her fancy to pose as one. In sooth, she has lived better since her husband died, but I trow 'tis the magic that's done it. She tells fortunes and reads palms to cozen her clients into stealing for they fear they will share William's fate. And she's made her own children her accomplices. I know this to be so because my voice trembled. My daughter Sarah was one of her victims, as was Rebecca, daughter of the Reverend Mr. Hale. That very kerchief she wears about her neck and her bonny lace cap were mine, traded by a ship captain to my husband for barrels he'd made. Sarah confessed she had taken them, and some of my linens. Does it say linens? Yeah. And some of my linen and my good piece of plate, and given them to this Dorcas whore, who, I doubt not, sold these last, for she told Sarah she would be cursed and die if she didn't obey her. She lies, your honor, the other shrieked. This kerchief is my own, given me by an admirer. 'Tis no sin for a widow woman to have an admirer, now is it? The magistrate ignored the last remark and turned to me. Do you accuse this woman of witchcraft? Nay, not witchcraft, thievery, and corrupting children. What have you to say for yourself, goody whore? I need say naught for myself, she attested. The Reverend Mr. Hale will do that. As for her, she smirked at me. Thievery, she claims. She'd not dare accuse me of witchcraft when everyone knows her own mother was one. I was riding through a forest glen on my mare. It had been several months since Dorcas had paid for her crimes. One morning in the stocks had seizure of what stolen goods could be found. Most never were. All too light a punishment in my mind, but the gentle, naive Reverend Hale, as she predicted, had interceded for her. Suddenly my horse whinnied and reared, nearly unseating me. I thought 'twas a bee stung her. 'Twas a bee stung her, but then a leather thong wrapped around my neck and jerked me from the saddle. The mare bolted. As I was getting to my feet, Dorcas strode into the path, reeling in a great bull whip. Are ye daft? I cried. Daft ist you'd call me, when you've been naught for a thorn in me arse all my life. First you took my William. William, I exclaimed, I hardly knew your husband. She gave a brittle laugh. Will whore, you think I'd cared a farthing if you'd taken him from me? Don't try to gull me. 'Twas the other William, I mean. He was never your William. He swore it. A man's swearing is ever to be taken lightly, as ye know well. You wed no better than I, but ships need barrels, and your man throve. Still, you're naught but a cooper's wife, with no more right to silks and laces and silver plate than I. Is't my fault your daughter loved me enow to bring me gifts, and wast your Jesus Christ, and wast your right to hold me up to public shame, me, a poor widow, wi' young'uns to support. From what I've heard, Dorcas, your day in the stocks has spread your fame. 'Tisn't only thievery fills your pockets, goody whore. She knew what name I'd called her. Her eyes, blessed, like, don't lose it, like marsh fire as she drew back the whip. To run would be useless. I could only stand and stare her down, praying silently. She hesitated, then unleashed the whip. But that one second had been just enough to break the force of the rawhide. I grasped it, feeling the sting of its coils about my arm, but I held on, drawing her to me until our faces were almost touching. Toe to toe, we struggled for control of the whip, although she, having hold of the handle, had the advantage. I know not how it would have ended, had not a brown arm encircled her neck and pulled her back. No hurt Yamata's friend. The point of the squaw's knife was at Dorcas's throat. Yawata, who'd been my friend from childhood. Dorcas released the handle, which fell to my side. Dangling from the leather still wound around my neck. Oh, Jesus Christ. Dorcas released the handle, which fell to my side, dangling from the leather still wound around my arm. As Yawata put away her knife, the marsh fire rekindled. Someday I'll have my revenge, she snarled. When there's no filthy, stinking selvage around to help you. If I have to wait all my life, nay, if it be that we meet in another life, I'll get you for this. Your Sarah loves me. Blood does not a daughter make. That was rough. More damn pages are there? 7. Need more beer so I can read more fluently. Well, less fluently. That pumpkin taste is really getting me. Really getting to me. The phone book refocused in my vision with the name Iris Faulkner standing out as though printed in boldface. What tricks had terror been playing on me that I should have had such fancies? Was I becoming psychotic? No, it could be explained easily enough, I thought. My mind had taken similarly shaped pieces from different jigsaw puzzles and put them together. But I could sort them out and put them back in proper order. First of all, there was the unmistakable similarity between Dorcas and Iris. As for the name Mary Etsy, I would have gotten that from Greg. Wasn't she the ancestress who died at Salem? And with all the talk of a pageant, maybe I was acquiring an obsession about Salem. The squall was easy to explain too. Dana and her knife had somehow wandered into my dream, if that was what it was. But it hadn't been, had it? A glance at my wristwatch told me that barely any time had elapsed. I put my finger in the dial to call Iris, but instantly thought better of it. How would I know if she lied? Rowan and Carrie might be there, held against their wishes, unable to call out. I must get hold of myself. What was the last thing Dorcas had said? Blood does not a daughter make. It was time to face Iris Faulkner on her own ground. The north half of the Faulkner house was actually bridged the narrow channel between. I gotta start that over. The north half of the Faulkner house actually bridged the narrow channel. Can't say it. The narrow channel between a spur of solid rock and the short peninsula that jutted out from the riverbank at that point. One long street bisecting the peninsula led to the driveway and garage. After parking my car, I followed a wooden sidewalk along the upriver side of the garage until my footsteps rang hollowly on the span of walk that was supported by pilings over the water. Underneath, the water swirled into sort of a mill race that flowed through portcullis like gratings on either side of the building. Few people in Peacehaven had ever been inside, with the exception of Iris's lovers. The Faulkners had guarded their privacy well, but it was said the judge had had the channel constructed so he and his daughter could swim there. Gray wooden steps with white latticework risers led to a wide veranda surrounding the river side of the house, like the deck of a steam wheeler or a stern wheeler. The upper deck was another veranda, and both were decorated with white wooden lacework of the river steamer era. Finding no doorbell, I lifted the brass gargoyle knocker and rapped on the door, which gave unexpectedly to my touch. The entrance hall was empty. Iris's home was as traditional as her shop was trendy. Farther in was a hall table on which a silver calling card tray shaped like a cherub holding an artist's palette was reflected in a tall mirror with lights on either side. Ahead was a broad staircase, a gigantic philodendron in a massive jardiniere at the foot of the newel post had climbed to the second floor level. Come in, Iris's voice sounded through the heavy dark gold portieres. What is that? Portiers? To my left. I pushed them aside and entered a room which at first glance seemed untenanted. I had expected to find a magnificent view of the river, but the stained glass windows above the wainscoting were tightly closed. A tawny oriental rug on the floor was largely obscured by heavy, ornate furniture upholstered in tufted mauve and amber velvet. You're early, lover, the voice said from the depths of a huge wing-back chair. I hadn't expected you so soon. My first instinct was to back out hastily, but the urgency of my errand held me. I'm sorry to intrude, Iris, I began. She rose, struggling with the last hook on a flowing green silk caftan. What are you doing here? Her wide mouth softened into a smile. What a nice surprise, she exclaimed. I never thought you'd design to visit me. Sit down and let me get you a drink. I declined both offers. I was looking for my daughters. Have you lost them? Dear me, how awkward. She went over to the bar and poured herself a drink. Sure you won't join me? She leaned against the bar, letting the caftan fall back from her bare thighs. I was fuming inwardly. No, thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were expecting someone. Confused and embarrassed, I started back through the velvet-hung archway, but her next question spun me around. Did you think you'd find your daughters here? I didn't know. I'd called just about everywhere else. Who was lover? I wondered. Greg? She sipped her drink. Why didn't you just call me? I fumbled for an answer. Why did I always feel so defenseless against her? Perhaps I thought of the good chance to see this fabulous house I'd been hearing about all my life. Now you're here. Let me show you around, she said, replacing her glass on the bar. She didn't believe me, I was certain. No, some other time I must look for Rowan and Carrie. Oh, come now. How do you know I don't have them chained somewhere? She asked softly. Really, Iris, I'm in no mood for joking. May I use your phone? I want to call Jim Willard. The police! Her pale lashes flicked. Oh, Mitty, I am sorry. She was all solicitude. I've been teasing you. Charity came by here on her way to Richland Center to pick up something I'd addressed for her. I'd ordered for her. She had your girls in the car with her. But Charity went to Mineral Point with her bridge club today, I said suspiciously. It was canceled at the last minute. I was still unconvinced. Why didn't Rowan leave a note? She shrugged. Oh, you know kids. Besides, you two aren't very close, are you? I clenched my teeth, not daring to speak. Anyway, she hurried me. She probably thought she'd get home first. She said you'd called from the Hobbs farm. Weak with relief, I slumped down in a chair to fight off a wave of dizziness. Oh, my hand is going to cramp up. Poor Mitty, you were frightened, weren't you? I had no idea, she purred. She was letting me run a few steps before her claws sank into me again. Here, drink this. You need it. I drank the brandy gratefully, feeling it unravel knots all the way down to my toes. Now you must let me show you something, she said, as I handed back the glass. Something you inspired. Warmed with brandy and curiosity, I followed her across the hall and through the dining room into a large butler's pantry. We're in the bridge part of the house, she said. Now watch. She opened the double trapdoor, revealing a circular metal staircase leading down into the space beneath the house. Light filtered through the crosshairs or the crossbars of the gratings and made a checkered pattern on the high concrete walkways. On either side of a swift running channel, an aluminum ladder led down into the water. Remember the story you once told me about the city in the sea? She asked after we descended. How could I ever forget that day? She stretched herself full length on the edge of the channel, letting her hand dabble in the current. I used to wish I was that princess, she mused, her eyes reflecting the black green water ribboning through the basement. I'd dream of drowning Peacehaven just as she did Wise. Or it says Wise. Did you hate Peacehaven so much? Do you have to hate something to want to destroy it? When you see an untrampled field of snow, what do you want to do? Wade through it and destroy its perfection. Isn't that so? Besides, I would have made Peacehaven famous if it hadn't been for Ahis, who would ever have heard of Yees? The fuck is this language? If it hadn't been for Ahas, who would have ever have heard of Yees? I don't know how to say that. Wise Yees? Yes. Salem would be another grubby Massachusetts seaport if it hadn't been for the witch trials. She turned over on her back and pillowed her head in her hands. At one time, the river ran through here, unchecked. After you told me about the city of Is, I suggested to Father that we dug a deeper channel and installed gratings that could be raised and lowered electrically. We could swim here. Her mouth curved. I like to pretend this would be a trysting place for me and the river, and a dumping off place for tiresome lovers. Don't kids get strange notions. Doesn't this ice up in the winter? No, there are hot water pipes and heating elements submerged there. I take a plunge nearly every day except in zero weather. Do you let the kids swim here? I asked apprehensively. No, I wouldn't want the responsibility. There's a bad eddy a few yards down from the house. If the grate were raised and someone unaware of the hazard were to try swimming out, he might get sucked into the whirlpool. Was she really that conscientious, or was she veiling a threat? When I swim around the rock, I always hold on to the pilings until I'm out of the undertow, she continued, giving me a curious look. I'm really not like your princess, after all. If I were, I suppose I'd let the boars drown, but eligible men in Peacehaven are too scarce to be expendable. Except Mark, flashed through my mind. No, that was unreasonably suspicious of me. Mark would have been much too young for her, but who had been down here? Greg? Lucian? Why don't you just swim between the gates, I wondered. In winter I do, but that's tedious. I don't like being trapped behind bars. Aren't you afraid a flood might wash your house away? The house is high enough and the rock is solid, unlike the sandstone along the rest of the shore. The only nuisance is the driftwood, and loose boats and other things that come floating downriver. I have to hire boys to clear them away, but most things pass by in midstream. She looked pointedly at her wristwatch. Well, now you've seen it. I won't keep you any longer. I might invite Rowan to swim with me sometime, she remarked, after we'd returned to the main floor. Again, that hint of menace. I'd rather you wouldn't, Iris. Oh, only between the greats, she assured me. I thought you didn't want the responsibility of kids. Swimming down there, I reminded her. But Rowan isn't just another kid, she said, opening the front door. She and I are very close. Sometimes I think she's more my daughter than yours, Mitty. What's wrong between you two? I hope she'll tell me someday. That's hardly your business, is it, Iris? I snapped. I suppose you're right. She placed an icy hand on my shoulder. I only want to help Mitty. I think she's afraid of you. Something happened to cause that. I've seen it in her hand. I thought she was reaching for my hand to bid farewell, but instead she turned it over and began to examine it. Aha! It's there in yours too, she exclaimed. See that cross? Oh, man. Oh, Mitty. You do have to be careful. I don't have time to do a reading now, but sometime I'll be glad to give you one. Not if I could help it. I was glad to escape now, even though it was tempting to linger and learn the identity of the expected caller. Thank you, but I'm not one to inquire into the future. I have too much trouble with the present, I said, stepping out onto the porch. You still distrust me, don't you, Mitty? She sighed. That's not very wise. Rowan confides in me. I could do a lot for you. Blood doesn't make a mother daughter relationship, you know. She might have plucked that sentence right out of my dream. A sense of unreality clung to me as I drove away. So absorbed in my thoughts, I almost didn't notice the car, headed in the direction from which I'd come, except that it wasn't Greg's Beetle. Then, with a slight shock, I realized the driver was Quentin Jackson. Oh no, what's Quentin up to now? And that's going to be it, brubs. Chapter 11.